Hello, all you unexplained ones. Thank you for joining us. I am your host, CJ Derringer, along with my co host, Dr. Mounts. Something we don't get to say often is good morning. Normally, we're recording these shows at night. So, good morning to everyone who is joining us. Thank you for tuning in. We really love all of our listeners in this community that we have built here at All Things Unexplained of open-minded people. And we have a wonderful show for you today. You are not going to want to miss this conversation. Please do like and subscribe, follow our show so that we can continue bringing this wonderful information to you. And now we are going to welcome to the show Dr. Astrid Stuckelberger. Good morning, Dr. Stuckelberger.
Good morning, both. Thank you for inviting me. This is a fantastic adventure.
Yes, absolutely. Now, we stumbled upon you because you have done a few interviews recently talking about CERN and what they are uncovering there. But that's not your history. You started in the public health world, and we are going to dive into all of her thoughts and ideas about CERN. But I do want to start with a little background on you. Tell us about your education, where you started, and where you're headed.
Yes, well, I'm a scientist, but I actually was already a parascientist in my soul before. So a meta scientist and parascientist. But I started in biology because my aim was, and that's maybe important. So my aim was in life was to understand what I can change and what I can't change, what is predestined and what is not predestined, what is due to the hazard or not, and to understand the meaning of all of it. So we're right in the right spot. So I started in biology, went to psychology, and then ended up in WHO in medicine, in the mental health department to analyze the differential diagnosis in the cultures. And actually, it's very difficult to make one standard diagnosis. So I saw that culture is linked to much more than that, and the belief are much more a factor in all research than we think. And I moved to science in the Faculty of Medicine, got a privatdocent, got a PhD in epidemiology, but public health. And since then, I've been doing governments, review of science in many, like anti-aging medicine and longevity was one of them, my expertise. But in WHO also, so WHO hired me many times on the pandemic. So I know right away that it was all wrong and all a fraud, but it's like that. And then it was in ethics and in many different factors of health. But I also was interested in spiritual health and the other factors, multidimensional. So I actually encountered the Director General of WHO, Altan Mahler, who wanted to change the definition of health by adding. It's not only it's a state of well-being, physical, mental, and social, and not just a lack of handicap or just but he wanted to add spiritual, and it was pulled under the carpet. So I have been looking for other meanings, even in the UN, and I have worked in many other departments in the UN, and Faculty of Medicine, 30 years of struggle as a woman. But I love science and I love investigation. And I'm very open because we don't know, and that's the statement really, nobody knows the real truth of anything. We have to stay open, and particularly in what's happening now, it's a fantastic scenery of investigation. We get so much information that was hidden to us. So I'm happy to be, and I accepted to be on your show because that's exactly what we have to do.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about how you came to us, how this conversation came to be was because of these comments that you had made about CERN. And maybe should we do a little background on what CERN is, where it's located, and then we can dive into your thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's give a little PowerPoint, right, CJ?
Yes.
Great.
Okay, so what are we seeing in this picture right here?
Well, so first of all, this is what is CERN, and basically CERN is a very large research institute, and it's highlighted by the Large Hadron Collider, where they smash particles together.
And Astrid, what do you think CERN's initial idea was when this enormous place was built to smash particles together. What were they looking for or hoping to discover?
Well, yeah, well, actually, that's what I did today. I thought that I need to know the history of this institution, because it is actually almost part of the UN. And it is actually built like the UN. And it was created in 1940. It started to be talked about. And in December 1949, they had a meeting all together, and there are about 11 countries that got together and said, we have to do something for science and research. By the way, CERN is the French acronym of, that means European Council for Nuclear Research. And it's in French, you have to know that. So if you think nuclear research, you think there are scientists, yes. So the UN in itself doesn't have an organigram with science except UNESCO, which is in Paris. And actually, what I found is that they really established it officially with UNESCO only later in 1953. And they even created a convention. You can find it on their website, or whatever I say here is, you can find the convention. It was built like exactly how the texts of the UN are built. And finally, in 1st of July 1953, it was created with a set of articles, same type, where if there is a problem, it's the International Court of Justice of the United Nations, like for the other agencies, that is deciding. So I was very surprised to see that it is like the UN, and it did construct after the World War II, the second one, knowing that the UN has been premeditated to be built after the World War I, after the World War II, and now used into World War III. Yeah, the World War II never ended, actually. The Nazis went away and came back, and they were already, dispatched. It is incredible how it's done. So what I see, it is first 11 countries, but now I counted, it's about 23, and there are 3 that are new members, and the US is an observer or associate member. So it's the whole world is there, and they're working with labs. And it's interesting because they create something. We are working with labs in the world. What does that mean? Laboratory. And it is in the whole world. So when there was the eclipse on the 8th, I was researching, and I found that there were many mini CERNs around the world, and that's probably in the history of it. So the marking, there are some stepping stones, and one of the stepping stone is that Tim Berners-Lee officially in 1990 created the World Wide Web. And that was my surprise when we were doing a commemoration at the UN for that, when I organized UN Open Day twice. And we had to invite the CERN, and I went to CERN, and I collaborated with them. I was like, what the heck is the Wide Web doing in CERN? That was a big question. I thought, and I now start to understand, but at that time I was like, okay. So you see, it is supposed to be for science of subatomic particles, so the smallest and actually the biggest and the widest, because in their convention, they say that they'll want to analyze cosmic rays. I don't know if it's written in the text here, but yeah, they put galaxy cluster. It's your question. Okay. Anyway, it is very interesting because they are going from the smallest particle to the biggest, because they want to take cosmic rays. And that's another question I haven't solved yet, but it's new to me. So
okay, so they've been taking these particles, smashing them together to see what comes of them. And I've heard everything from they have created black holes to they are trying to create wormholes so that they can help us figure out how we can travel through the universe. But you heard some things about portals. So tell us a little bit about what you've learned about possible portals opening up in CERN.
Yeah, first, the black hole thing, because black hole there's no application. It was written on even on the website of CERN. They work with antimatter, and they work with portals, and they have all the thing of time. They want to collude the particles, so they put the particles in this lower collidron, LHC, I will call it, this huge loop of 27 kilometers that they want to build now to 91 kilometers.
Oh, wow.
And they put it to the speed of light, and they want to collude all these particles so that the explosion will open something, a part of the portal, or some new beings coming out. And they even said that. So if you want the portal, I have a story to say, and we can come back to this experiments that are, and what they said on the 8th. I have a quote here of the director of research on the eclipse day, what they want to do. So when I was always intrigued by CERN, and there are two perspectives why. One is because in the what is happening with the WHO in the epidemic of typology that I was in charge of for 3.5 years at WHO to teach. There was a typology on infectious disease, but I mean, it's bacteria, parasites. It's not just obsession with virus. My viromania, actually, now we know it does not even exist. It's a detox. And the second was foodborne disease. The third was chemical, and that's why the cremicine has to take care of all that. When there are deaths. And the last one is radionuclear. So I was inviting people from the Atomic Agency, International Energy Atomic Agency in Vienna, and they were collaborating with CERN. And the students could ask questions, but I always ask questions. And I said, is it dangerous to be near CERN? And are there particles? And is there a surge in cancer? Have you noticed that people are more sick in this? And he said, oh, no. They're denying that radionuclear events are even creating thyroid cancer, which is proven. So that was my first very big question. I was like, CERN is here. They're doing subatomic explosion. And, it's like radionuclear. And we don't have, maybe we're going to disappear in a black hole. I was like, what's going to happen? So that was the first, I've always questioned, they were very strange and stuff. So then forward to 2016, I was invited to, kind of marriage dinner, very nice. And they seated me with two physicians from the CERN. And I said, fantastic. I said, I'm going to ask them all those questions.
Jackpot.
So, it was great. And so they were from Portugal. And because it was in Portugal, this dinner. And so I said, the first thing I'm very interested in is how many dimensions do we have in this world? Because we call 3D, 4D, 5D, and there's a lot of discussions, and something that always intrigued me. So they both affirmed 17. Oh, 17. I said, but where is this written? Can I find something? Can you give me some documents? They did not give me any link, any document. It was like, no, we just know there are 17 dimensions. Okay, and I said, so what special can you tell me about those 17 dimensions? How far did you explore? That's when they talked about the portal. And on the picture you showed, that's the type of portal we see in Stargate, right? This thing, yeah, exactly. So the movies in Hollywood have kind of warned us. Everybody tells me I should watch all the Stargate because that's where a lot of the truth has come. But so this portal, they have many different labs and rooms with portals, and this big LHC, 27 kilometers around. But they explained to me that they were not in the experiment, but their friends were from the CERN in Geneva, that they asked for beings to come from the portal, from other dimensions, and a being came. I call it being because I said, so can you describe? And they said, no, we can't. We don't know. So maybe they know and they couldn't talk about it. And I said, but how do you know it's really not invented? And he said that they did it again a few times, and once clothes were left clothes, a scarf. And again, question, how was the scarf and etc. But they didn't know, but it's a known fact in the CERN. And I said with that, like perplexed, because I said, how come that nobody talks about this happened, with the eclipse and everything? I said, yeah, makes sense. And I spoke about Apollonian and this, with Maria Z on the TV, her TV 2 years ago, the first time. It was very important. I said, yeah.
So
in fact, CERN is built on a altar.
The scarf, the leaving of the scarf behind, that shifts my thought process a lot, because I know that one thing CERN is wanting to do is work on time travel. So is it possible that the being that they were coming in contact with was a human from a different time period? Because when you think scarf, you definitely think human. We don't hear about demons or aliens or what have you leaving scarves, but not to say that they couldn't, of course. But that makes me think more time travel than opening a portal to another planet or universe or what have you.
Well, they describe that they are time portal. That's one of their topics. It's there on CERN. I don't know if they've put it lately, but I never saw that before. This Mandela effect. They put the news and they say, no, it was always there, and you start doubting about your past.
Yeah.
So I think they have time machines they discovered in the caves of the Vatican, in the tunnels, and there is in Europe, large Europe, the Buseghi, and I mean it's known like that, but I have never seen one. There are time machines that were used by the Vatican, hidden by the CIA, etc. If this is right, then they have done it before.
Yeah, and of course the Vatican would be involved with something like that.
Oh, yeah, because if they lie, they don't want us to know, because they've been lying. Maybe they've been even adding 1,000 year. That's what we can see on some monuments. They've been adding 1,000 year on Jesus Christ year. So there are many possibilities. That's what as you are an open audience. There are many possibilities, but you can see the proof, because many monuments can just put I before a Roman I, but in fact it should be another letter that is different, or it should be at the same size, and it's not. And there are many things that they've been hiding that we know. There are giants. There are giants that have existed in St. Petersburg, and there are proofs of that. So they lie so much that a time machine would really be fantastic for us. But they made Hollywood Back to the Future to make us believe that it's not the way that we think it is. It's much easier.
Where we're going, we don't need roads. Astrid, that's what they say in Back to the Future. But wow, seriously, what better way to control the narrative than to be able to control time itself?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was.
And some military, I don't know if you saw this video. I forgot his name, from a military who talked about that they were using the time machine in this war. It's a very different war from the Second World War they have portrayed to us historically, and that it is a chess game on the time machine, because they know and they have won. And he said, we have already won since 2012, but it is a question. It is absolutely no doubt that the things are going to change for the better. I forgot, and it is a special name, this project of the military. I forgot now. It's not paper.
We'll look that up. We'll look that up.
Sorry?
And get we'll look it up and get a link in here so that people can check that out for themselves.
It's good to know that the movements now are more about narrative censorship, etc. And we know this with I invite everybody to go and see the interview of Tucker Carlson with Mike Benz, because Mike Benz saying that it is a war on narrative, censorship, and of course history, lies. So the CERN is the same. They are lying. They're going to subatomic levels. They know a lot of things. And actually what we see is that they're actually summoning. They're summoning entities to come in a portal.
Right.
And it is exactly what happened. I don't know if you want to talk about it now. At the eclipse, that's when I posted most, because I was like, whoa, the Director General of the CERN, I can even quote that.
Yes, let's talk about it.
Here, I printed it because I want to quote you, because it's spectacular. You know, you can say, oh, I have a hypothesis.
Oh, we lost you there.
We have Dr. Astrid Stuckelberger with us from Switzerland.
I said something wrong. I'm
Hi.
here.
They cut you off,
I must have said something.
but she's back.
Usually it's... Yeah, so there is a guy who made a TED talk, I think he's called Rich Sutton, who created the quantum computer D-Wave, and he said that in the TED talk that they are really waiting now for entities and aliens coming in portals. And, you know, these entities we are summoning, it's going to work soon. And so now they're summoning through the AI. But anyway, let's come back to the CERN on 8th of April, the eclipse. But they've tried it before. I think in July 22, I saw. But we were all very concerned about this.
Every time she goes to talk about the eclipse, she gets frozen. So there's clearly something that somebody doesn't want her talking about.
There does seem to be something going on.
Anymore. I'm not going to say the word anymore.
She's back again. Yeah.
Because
when they were looking
AI,
at the thing in the sky, with the sun happening.
Incredible, but I mean, I'm used to this. So the director for research and scientific computer at CERN, Sergio Bertolucci. I'm not censored. Good. Okay. He said that the Titanic machine may possibly create or discover previously unimagined scientific phenomena or unknowns, for instance, an extra dimension. And he says, out of this, and it's really quoted, out of this portal, yeah, might come something, or we might send something through it. Can you imagine? He said that. And then you can find it on the web. And I put on my X, you know, when I posted, I put the link to that text.
Yeah.
You had to find it. I went and did research because I knew they were trying to call upon entities like they did, you know, with the Gothard.
It does seem like AI is taking over. It does seem as though the future of humanity is some sort of crossbreed of artificial intelligence and human.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the way that we get to another universe, right? Is they think that if they can crossbreed us with artificial intelligence, we can survive long enough to get across the universe to a different planet or to a different solar system. So let's go back a little bit to, I want to talk about beings, this concept of beings and rituals that have happened at CERN. And I think there was one other place that we wanted to bring up some rituals. And we had a question
it's all
here.
Over the place. It's all over
Yeah,
the place.
it is all over the place. So a comment here from Helen of Crystals. And thank you, Helen, by the way. She always tunes in and is so communicative with us and always commenting. So Helen, we appreciate you. Helen of Crystal says, it's the satanic ritual type opening ceremonies that make me curious. And maybe you have more insight into what she is referring to.
And I have an interesting video on that as well.
Oh, great.
Good. So let's switch it.
Okay, so let me preface this video by this. So up until this video, it was all just speculation, right, about satanic rituals and that sort of thing going on at CERN. But then these CERN scientists literally made a prank sort of video acknowledging that, hey, this is part of our lore. This doesn't have any sound. And because it's a little disturbing, I'm going to cut the very end of it off, but it's very short. So let me add this to the stage. And what we're seeing here, this is someone recording from a cell phone. This is at CERN, and you can see the statue of Shiva there, which we will talk about at some point, hopefully. And so this is CERN, and we see all these cloaked figures in a ceremony, and they remove the cloak from a young girl. And what they're reenacting here, disturbingly, is a human sacrifice. And this is definitely at the grounds of CERN. This was not a real human sacrifice. I have to say that this was some sort of prank with the scientists, but it's to date, so far as we know, no one has been reprimanded or fired or anything like that. But it's kind of like wink, wink. We know what's happening here.
Is there a follow-up question to that, Tim?
No, I can comment maybe. I was really shocked to see that, because I never, even the Gotthard thing, I never expected this evil to be so evil, because this is a ritual that you can find a bit everywhere in the world that we're seeing now disclosed. Yeah, and you see how big it came in the back, and it is around, so it is a portal with Shiva, the destroyer, in the middle. So Shiva is the god, Hindu god of destruction. And it is built on Apollyon, which it is a place in Geneva that I didn't know, but now I know, historically, which is already an altar or sacrifice of destruction, not of good, but of evil. And so this ritual can just, remind you of other rituals that are made around the world, like the Bohemian Groove. Are they doing the same, etc.? And is it the same group? Yes, because they do sacrifices, and they need the sacrifice to feed the beast. For me, there is something there of feeding the beast and the destroyer to summon, like this guy said, I think it's Rich Sutton, to summon, they call it the entities / demons. And, and so if people know that, then this is a symbol of the portal. I'm analyzing, past knowledge, because I didn't know they were doing that. I saw the Shiva, actually, by the way, this Shiva statue, which I thought was nice. Now I know it's a transformer, I guess, but is also in one of the executive rooms of WHO, where we used to go in this room to wait to go and make a panel in the executive room. In the executive room, which is the most important decision making. So it's exactly it's not as big, but there is a symbol, and they work with symbols, like the CERN symbol, like everything is symbolic of this group who has a cult. And to add to that, I can tell you another internal stories is that somebody in WHO, after a conference I made, came to me and said, and told me that what I'm saying is correct, that she's very happy because nobody dares to speak. Why? Because they're afraid to lose their pension system. You see, and that's the only reason, I guess, that nobody is talking. But I said to her, but please tell me what energy and what is behind Tedros, the Director General. Who is directing him exactly? What, apart from Gavi, something, a group? And she said it's a cult. And when you know that the CERN is connected to WHO through a tunnel, and the whole United Nations has tunnels underground, because people from the security have told me that, confirmed. There is a whole system underground with CERN, with the whole United Nations system. We have more than 23 agencies and specialized program of the UN. It's the World Trade Organization, the refugee, the migrants, ITU, very important for AI, is just opposite. And then you have the ILO for the labor office. You have the meteorological office. We have more than anybody else in the whole system. And Switzerland has given immunity to everybody. Gavi also has 10 storage. So you have a system of tunnel underground, and they communicate like that. You don't see when they go here and they go there. And the WEF, the World Economic Forum, is just opposite too. And what is said, I'm going to do a scoop now, because I have many witnesses, yes. who are very reliable, who told me that under the lake there is one of the main CIA bases headquarters.
What?
Yes, and I was like, so I'll tell you how.
What lake is that?
The Lake of Geneva, the Léman, Lac Léman. So we have the French border and the Swiss, and it's the lake there. Under the lake, which is profound, they have a city apparently underground. I don't know how they breathe, but they know. I mean, and it's really people reliable. It's a former military who has worked in the American Army, and was building helicopters. With a top group, and I called him to know if the helicopters were from the army, because there are many who are still on Geneva undeclared, and he said yes, they are from the army, not the Swiss army, but I cannot tell you. I said, are they nice people? Tell me just if they are or the bad one. And he said nice. Okay, that's it. I cannot tell you anymore. So that was one confirmation. He said that there is a city under the lake that is more than 300,000 people.
What?
And because it's connected to the Genova, the Mediterranean underground with submarines. Now, another proof is that the Russians, a Russian delegation came very discreetly on the other side of Geneva of the lake. And it's a monastery who told me that, and many people who are in that village, they saw them come with a submarine, a bathyscaphe, and they were going under the Lake of Geneva during 1 week. They were doing investigation. So there is something fishy, it's literal, figurative fishy in this lake. So it explains why it's so important, but it doesn't explain why they chose Geneva to build all this, and it is energetically. Apparently, geobiologically, every big mountain is a point of energy on the cities under in the world. And there are some that have more energy, like the Mont Blanc, the Monte Bianco, which is, I can see it from my window.
Oh.
It's a beautiful
We're
mountain.
going to be going through a really interesting project today that I think everybody's going to be really interested in.
Is it the super collider, the CERN place?
Damn it, Dick.
I had CERN in my session.
You and Dick both did, yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, so this is a source of much controversy and speculation, all kinds of conspiracy theories. So it doesn't, this target doesn't need much of a reveal because so many people know so much about CERN. But we'll just pull up the main goals that are published on their website. At CERN, that their work is supposed to help uncover what the universe is made of and how it works. And they do this providing a unique range of particle accelerator facilities to researchers to advance the boundaries of human knowledge. The remote viewer is to observe and record the main underlying goals and agenda of CERN. And the remote viewer is to observe topics that have been purposely hidden by CERN from reaching public knowledge. So you guys had some interesting data, lots and lots of data that showed you guys were on target. And then there was some data that corroborated that seemed to point towards some nefarious things going on. Yeah, I can't wait to go through you guys' data because there was a lot of people that seemed to indicate that there's more buried at CERN than what we are told about.
All right. Well, this is going to be interesting because we all got some really interesting data. This is going to be
I agree. Oh,
good.
Why don't you get us started, Dick, and walk us through your sessions on this one?
And then I saw this thing, which was kind of what Naeem drew. I thought it was like an altar. I saw this circular energetic thing. There's a small secure room with a small number of special people who get a briefing, an explanation. They need badges. They have credentials. It's like a skiff. Someone left this place and shed his identity, turned in his badge, disassociated himself from this. He has highly regarded credentials, but he walks away and goes incognito. Disgust, regret, fear for humanity. He doesn't like it for the sake of humanity. Something goes awry. I see someone's eyes popping out. This was a real spooky visual, almost like a head explosion, gruesome. An experiment goes wrong. So that's my session.
Good stuff,
God,
Dick.
I wish I would have tied that. I should have said, well, once I figure out it's CERN, then you're going conscious mind. All that was the raw data as it comes to you as a remote viewer. Like, I don't know what this is, but I know it does this.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, that's nice work. Edward, let's go through yours next.
All right. So the first thing that was happening here was that I was under something was under. And so it's like an area that seems dark, seems humid. I was under, below. It was a multi-layer structure. There was an underground element here. Felt that it was near water, and this area here felt like there was an extension here. Large structure, multiple floors, that kind of thing. But why the need to expand, I pondered, to hold more, to hide more, to facilitate more. Well, facilitate, of these three, facilitate was the most interesting. So what's that about? There's a scientific feel here, like a large facility to hold more equipment and people, like CERN and the Large Hadron Collider. Big ideas and big expansions, like you could have an entire underground city working together. But working towards what, I wonder? This is a place that has symbology on the walls, power symbols and energy symbols. A power generator moving through this. So this is interesting because I just looked this up. I just wanted to look up Zeus and CERN, and I did not know this, but there is a Zeus particle detector that has scientific research that is either done or similar to the Large Hadron Collider. If you look at the magnets for the Large Hadron Collider, that's what they look, that's them. I did not know that, unbeknownst to me. I just literally just looked this up. These are the magnets for the Large Hadron Collider.
Really nice viewing there, Edward.
Yeah, thanks, man. That was another really enjoyable target.
Thank you.
I love the
Derek,
session.
Yeah. Derek, let's go through your data.
S2 phonics, highlighted elemental, underground, underneath, mystic, bewildering, high function, magnet, and attraction. I got the name Hammond. I have no idea.
So, and what I think is interesting, it could be a metaphor, but if you ever watch Stargate SG-1, General Hammond ran the facility underground at Cheyenne Mountain. I don't know. That's what I thought of when I saw that, and I can see a parallel if it's a metaphor.
Right. This was really, really bizarre. Like it's part of forgotten tech, something that was lost to time, and maybe we've rediscovered it. But there was a guy being put out on a ramp, and this is that megalithic stone, and the whole thing like pivots around this other stone, goes in underneath, and they're sacrificed. And so these people are dead, and these people are being picked up and hauled away. Workers picking up and dragging bodies, not on rollers, seems magical. Like, no idea. Offering, sacrificial. So that was really bizarre.
That's really interesting. I mean, you get what you get and you put it down, right? They're definitely
that's
something
it.
goofy
That's
over
what
there.
it was.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let's see, Daz.
Okay, interesting stuff so far. This is my ideogram here, and it's showing that there's some, something deep down with land and stuff. And I kept seeing this land interface, but something was, down here, down below the surface. It was, so moving down below here, felt like there's an area of interest in the lower ground surface. So I tried to look at what this was. It's a man-made structure. Felt like it was small or lost in the wider landscape, but it was buried intentionally. So then I asked why, and it was buried for safety reasons and security, and it was all about research. This is an underground or buried man-made structure, and it was tree-like, so it had like roots spreading out from a central trunk here, and these would be like the tunnels. And this is like a side view. It's a natural landscape here with some structures on surface, but the majority of everything that's going on is below the surface here, with lots of tunnels and chambers. So it definitely had a feeling of stored technology or artifacts. Feels hidden, and it felt like, you go down a level into these big chambers here, and that's where you'd find the stored artifacts, and they're behind several layers of security. And then I tried drawing it here, and I just kept getting this curved kind of, metallic levitating kind of object here. And this is me trying to draw it under this weird covering. But there were also smaller things there as well. Boxes or box-shaped stacked artifacts, and they were like stacked against walls or surfaces. and it almost felt like it was being stored here, like it was like a technology tomb.
Very intriguing, Daz. Very intriguing indeed. Naeem, let's see what you got, man.
And so the first thing I saw here was something like a tower, and it felt like a giving off a broadcast. Felt like it was on an installation, a beacon or a transmission being given off here, like encrypted data. And I was wondering, I was just searching, like, is there some kind of towers like this at CERN? And there's some kind of stuff that got going on there. So that might have been that. That kept catching my attention, kind of like in the distance. I kept seeing this tower. Observations, calculations, and testing, scientific work going on. Even the sense that some people might be under oath, like with the work that they're doing here. And then I saw this kind of spoked feature. Sense was like gravitron or torque forces being used in a test chamber, kind of like a test chamber environment. And that was the end of my paper session. And I did a whiteboard session, and I wish on paper I got a little further, but in there I kind of got more into the sense of like isotopes and combining elements, and even a sense of like maybe radiation. Like, I don't know, maybe they produce radiation when they do some of these experiments.
Thank you, Naeem. We should definitely have that whiteboard session up along with this so that folks can check that out, because it was nice work there.
This is a drawing of a physicist who left CERN because he feared what they were doing to humanity, and what he saw will make you question everything. CERN is the biggest physics lab in the world that is devoted to figuring out the most basic elements of our universe, and they do this by smashing together atoms at incredibly fast speeds, or at least we're told. We decided to remote view CERN to learn more about them, and here's what Dick got back.
And one of them is a guy that I see him, and he's highly regarded. He has a lot of credentials, but he walks away. He's got disgust and fear and regret, and he's worried about, like, is this going too far? Or we shouldn't be gods. This is God's territory. God should be doing this, not us. And what he's concerned about is the energetic thing, that they're going to do something that will affect humanity physically, mentally, and emotionally.
But what about the other conspiracies? Go to our bio.
I see these guys in a control room. And these guys, I don't know what it is, but I know these guys monitor it. And there's something energetic over here. It's a sterile room. There's a long tunnel. They're physics guys. It thumps and whirs and whacks like an MRI sounds, like whomp, 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 like opening a gate. They're doing something that affects the masses of humanity, affects physically, mentally, and emotionally. Then I saw the rapid circular movement of a small thing that made me think of a particle accelerator.
Okay. The LHC opens a dimensional portal. I wasn't prepared for what I found when I astral projected my way into CERN. CERN operates the Large Hadron Collider for use in cutting-edge particle physics research. You might remember from a number of years ago when this thing first went online, there was all kinds of speculation and there was some panic in some quarters. Some people believed that when they fired this thing up, it would cause a black hole that would end up swallowing the entire Earth. I remember there was a letter from one particular woman who was basically crying, saying, "Don't do this. I don't want my child to die." So there was some overwrought type of emotions associated with the beginning of this particular machine in particle physics research. Anyway, I flew into the dark skies above the clouds with the stars shining like Christmas lights above. I decided to investigate CERN, but I sense I'd have to inject some future time travel as well. I aimed for Geneva, Switzerland, in the future where a major discovery happened at the CERN. It's actually easier than it sounds. I just extend my senses into the future at that location, looking for spikes in emotional resonance. I stopped when a huge blast of energy hit me head on. I don't know the exact year, as I wasn't progressing to a particular year as I usually do, but in essence, feeling my way forward. However, based on all my experience in time travel, I had the feeling that this future possibility was within the lifetime of many folks listening to this projection right now. Anyway, as I materialized, the place was buzzing with the usual science cult energy. White coats pacing, screens filled with graphs only 3 people on Earth truly understood, and of course, the star of the show, the Large Hadron Collider. I slipped through a locked steel door, of course, one of the perks of, not having a physical body, and headed straight to the chamber where the real fun was happening. And there it was, the portal. It looked nothing like the movies, no clean Stargate ring or neon blue swirls. This thing was messy, like a wound in reality. Imagine a tear in black silk, edges shimmering with a silver liquid, but instead of being flat, it pulsed like a living thing, breathing in and out, pulling space-time with it. The closer I got, the more I could feel it tugging on my astral form, like it wanted to suck me in and use me as dental floss for the multiverse. Scientists stood around, wide-eyed, pretending they were in control. They weren't. The machine hummed at a frequency I felt in my chest. My gut told me it wasn't the collider creating the portal, it was feeding it. A crack in the cosmic windshield that had been waiting for someone to pump enough energy through it to pry it open. Naturally, I dove in, because of course I did. The other side was wrong. Not bad, not evil, just built on rules that had nothing to do with ours. Gravity, for instance, seemed optional. Land floated like shattered continents drifting through a violet haze. Time felt slippery, like it was stuttering between frames of a movie. And the inhabitants? Let's just say evolution had been drunk when it designed them. One creature floated towards me, if floated is even the right word. It had no legs, no eyes, just a translucent body shaped like an hourglass, full of glowing fluid that pulsed in rhythms I swore were language of a sort. When it spoke, I didn't sense the typical telepathy. I felt surges of memory, not my memories, but alien ones. The sensation of being born in a sky made of liquid, the taste of metallic rain, the pain of splitting your own body into 2 beings so your species could multiply. I tried to crack a joke. Nice place you got here. Love what you've done with the floating rocks. But it didn't translate. Just another dimension where my humor is just not appreciated. Anyway, the being simply poured another wave of sensations into me. This one darker, fear, hunger, a message. We did not open this. You did. And now it cannot be closed. Behind it, others emerged. Some were fractal, branching beings that split and folded like living origami. Others looked like half-melted shadows with eyes scattered randomly across their forms. they all radiated the same vibration, curious, cautious, and more than a little annoyed. I realized then that the CERN hadn't just found the portal, they had tapped into a dimension already inhabited. And those inhabitants, they weren't thrilled about humans poking holes in their ceiling. I pulled myself back before the portal tried to keep me. Sliding out of CERN, I left the scientists blissfully unaware of what they were really dealing with. They thought they'd unlocked the secrets of the universe. What they actually had done was invite the neighbors over, and trust me, these neighbors don't borrow sugar. I decided as soon as I returned to my body to go out again and go back to do a little bit more probing around. Okay, so, the first time I stumbled into the CERN portal, I thought I'd just dip my toes in the dimensional pool and then slip back before anything weird attached itself to me. But, you know me, I'm like a moth to an interdimensional bug zapper. When I returned, the scientists at CERN were still fiddling with their knobs and screens, utterly clueless that this portal wasn't a toy, but a doorway with something on the other side already listening. So I stepped through again. The second time, the pull was stronger. The portal recognized me, like a dog sniffing the same stranger twice. It pulled me inside with a jolt, and before I could crack a joke about frequent flyer miles, I was back in that violet haze of their dimension. This time I paid attention. The place was alive in ways that we just don't have words for. The air itself seemed conscious. It pressed against my astral skin, curious, as if it were sniffing me. It was a very odd sensation. The floating land masses drifted slowly, some studded with spires of crystalline growths that bent into ribbons, others carpeted in shimmering fungi that pulsed like heartbeats. In the far distance, great tendrils, like roots of an impossible tree, stretched from one floating island to another, tethering the whole sky together. The first being I met before, the hourglass creature, returned. It hovered close, its glowing fluids sloshing gently inside its transparent body. This time it spoke with more intent, flooding me with images of watchers, gatekeepers, guardians. They called themselves, as best as I could translate, the Ketharim, or those who endure the between. Their role wasn't to dominate their world, but to maintain balance between countless drifting dimensions. Ours, it turned out, was just another bubble in the foam. I asked, sarcastically of course, so what's the Yelp review on Earth? 2 stars? 3? The Ketharim answered with a sensation so sharp I almost lost my tether to my body back on Earth. It was hunger, but not food, for experience. They were fascinated by our dimension, not because of our physics, but because of our chaos. To them, we were like a carnival, loud, messy, full of violence and beauty, all tangled together. They weren't sure whether to treat us as an art exhibit or as prey. Further in, I explored more of their society. The fractal beings I'd glimpsed before unfolded themselves into sprawling cities that looked like frozen explosions of glass and shadow. Instead of streets, they had shifting pathways of light, bending underfoot, or whatever body part these things use to guide travelers. Communication wasn't words, but exchanges of memory and sensation, each encounter leaving a residue of someone else's life inside you. By the time I'd met half a dozen of them, I'd felt like I'd lived centuries on a world of liquid mountains and burning skies. It wasn't all awe and wonder, though. There was tension. The Ketharum weren't unified. Some of them saw Earth as a threat, an unstable, aggressive dimension that might spill its toxins into theirs if left unchecked. Others wanted to use us as a playground, a resource of fresh sensations and raw chaos. And a smaller, darker faction wanted something worse, assimilation, to merge our dimension into theirs, dissolve the boundaries, and feed on the endless storm of a human consciousness like gourmets at a buffet. I wish I could say I gave them a stirring speech about peace and cooperation, but honestly, I just said, look, you really don't want to merge with us. Have you met humans? We're the only species dumb enough to invent TikTok and nuclear weapons. The hourglass being pulsed with what might have been amusement or indigestion. Hard to tell. But the message I got before I slipped back out was clear. Your world is noticed. The crack is open. We will come through, whether as guests, explorers, or predators, depends on you. When I returned to my body, gasping and sweating like I'd run a marathon, I realized something chilling. CERN thought they were on the cutting edge of science. What they really were was a welcome mat. And now, somewhere beyond the humming of their machine, the neighbors were deciding whether to knock politely or kick the door down. I decided to go out one more time. This was the next night. Because I thought about it. I just wanted a little bit more before I capped off the experience. Because I'd originally told myself I wouldn't go back, but I don't know. I just had to know more. I had to get a little bit more information. I guess curiosity is a drug, and in this case, CERN was my dealer. Anyway, I went back just one more time. This time, though, I didn't step through the portal. I stayed Earthside, hovering in astral form just above where the scientists were, in their own oblivious way summoning the storm. The portal pulsed larger than ever, its edges glowing like molten silver under stress. They had ramped up the collider, feeding it with enough power to black out half of Europe if someone sneezed wrong. And then it happened. At first, it was just a ripple, a distortion in the air like heat rising off asphalt. Then came a bulge and stretching, and suddenly the portal didn't just look alive, it was birthing something. The hourglass being emerged. It looked a lot bigger than I thought it was. Anyway, it wasn't a projection, and it wasn't some sort of flicker. The whole glowing, fluid-filled, translucent self spilled into Earth's dimension. For the first time, the Ketharum had crossed over. The reaction was pure chaos. One scientist just fainted. Another screamed something in German that I didn't bother to try to translate. A security guard actually tried to raise his sidearm because, sure, shooting liquid geometry always works out well. But before the man could even aim, the creature released a wave of pressure. Not sound, not light, but memory. Every human in the room staggered as alien experiences surged into them. Centuries of skies that rained metal, the sensation of growing roots into living stone, the sorrow of splitting your consciousness into two halves that never see each other again. I felt it too, even in my astral form. And let me tell you, humans, physical humans, aren't built for that kind of data dump. Half of them dropped to their knees, weeping. The others stood frozen, their faces twisted with awe and terror. Then the being spoke, not with words, but with that same pulse of intent that I'd felt before. We are here. The door is open. We are many. That's when the military arrived. I mean, you didn't think CERN didn't have some backup plans, did you? Men in black uniforms stormed in, guns raised, shouting protocols no one in the room remembered agreeing to. The scientists protested, yelling about historic contact, about peace, about communication. The soldiers weren't having it. To them, this wasn't first contact. It was an invasion. They opened fire. The bullets hit the Kethrum and sank into its translucent form like stones tossed into water. Ripples spread, but the creature didn't fall. It didn't even flinch. Instead, it pulsed again, stronger this time, and suddenly the guns were gone, not destroyed, just forgotten. The soldiers stared at their empty hands in confusion, unable to remember what a weapon was or why they had been holding one. To be honest, that scared me more than anything else that I'd seen. These beings didn't just cross dimensions. They rewrote minds like we edit Word documents. The scientists, even the opportunists, scrambled forward, trying to communicate, begging for dialogue, but the Kethrum was already shifting, folding its form, preparing. Behind it, the portal shimmered again, more shapes pressed against the membrane of our reality, fractal shadows, origami giants, liquid serpents that twisted in impossible loops. They were waiting for a signal. The hourglass being turned back towards the portal, then toward us. Your world is loud, bright, dangerous. We will decide. And just like that, it vanished, snapped back into the portal as if yanked on a cosmic leash. The tear in space sealed itself halfway, flickering unstable, but not closed, never closed. The humans left behind were wrecked. Some babbled incoherently about visions. Others sat in shock. The military scrambled for containment protocols. And I just floated above them, trying to catch the breath in my body that wasn't even breathing, because I realized something that I don't think they had yet. This wasn't first contact. It was a scouting trip. And the neighbors weren't deciding whether to knock anymore. They were deciding how.